Christoph shows what happens when AI agents reshapes pipelines, roles, and what a CTO actually is in 2026. Christoph, go for it.
Hi. Is it on? Hey, yeah. Basically, thank you for having us. Data Unplugged, we're happy to be here. So now, today we're talking about like engineering leadership and how it will change in the age of agentic AI. So first of all, who would consider themselves to be an engineering leader in here? Hands up. Great, that's already a good audience here. Amazing. So let's talk a little bit about Linnify, who we are and what we do.
It's a short intro. My name is Razvan. I'm CTO and co-founder of Linnify, and this is Chris, my technical partner from DACH region. At Linnify, we are working with SMEs and usually medium-sized SaaS companies from North America and Germany. We are helping them to build, deploy, and integrate agentic AI solutions into their systems. And today we want to show you how we change internally to adapt to new AI era.
Right, so if you have any questions during the presentation, whip out your phone and scan the Slido code so we can chat later on. So, I mean, you've seen it before, OpenClaw. It's been all the rage, and we don't really want to chime in on the hype, but one thing that's really important here to note is that one single guy made it possible to build a $1 billion valuation company within 3 months, yeah, Peter Steinberger. I also call him the Arnold Schwarzenegger of AI because obviously he's from Austria and he's very capable. And yeah, basically you have to ask yourself, what kind of people do you have in your organization that can build something like that and that can disrupt your whole industry just like that? And yeah, we intentionally took a really buff guy here to show you that if your developers are basically just using an agent swarm to build your production systems, they have a lot of time to basically hit the gym and do something else. So go stack up on your protein bars, yeah? But honestly speaking, once again, you need to ask yourself, what is the potential in your team to actually build software way, way faster than you do currently? Instead of taking 3 sprints to ship one feature, take 1 sprint to ship 3 big features. So you have to ask yourself, what is the impact on your target operating model? And the roles are changing, and it's your job to foresee that. So let's look into the future of your engineering talent. So first of all, let's start at the bottom with the juniors that are just joining your company. Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, basically said, if you take a junior and pair it with AI, you have a very skilled knowledge worker, and that basically the knowledge is all encoded in AI, so you don't actually need senior talent anymore. Or this is at least how it was understood by the media, and everybody said, okay, we can get rid of senior talent, we can basically save a lot of money, and we just use juniors and a bunch of AI to get everything done. And the problem with this is that we don't think that this is the case. We don't want to take sides in this discussion, but there's like a narrative that goes in both directions, right? And we think that the future talent, especially the juniors, need to be systemic thinkers. They need end-to-end thinking, and they need to do very well with context engineering, but they also need to be smart in basically asking questions to the models and also being very critical about the answers. Then looking at your organization, do you have there like the 10x developers, like the developers that are currently outperforming, one guy outperforming a whole team? Do you have that? Because this is the talent you need to identify and that you need to empower now to become the 10x agent orchestrator in your organization. Now, looking at the middle management. Middle management is currently being hit really hard by the AI wave. Yeah, we saw Amazon basically laying off 30,000 people in their organization. We saw that Meta is trying to reduce their workforce by 20%. And the list goes on. You have Atlassian, you have Oracle, and you hear this in the news every day. And everybody is attributing that basically to AI productivity gains. But I don't think that's really the case, and that's really true. Because at the end of the day, they're just right-sizing the organization after they previously massively stacked up on people. And they have a lot of AI spent, and they need to justify that somehow. So basically, they're just saying, hey, we've got AI doing the job now, while that's probably not even the case right now. But what is clear is that your middle management will need to adapt, and it will need to shift. And it will probably need to move closer to the product again, which basically means interacting with people, interacting with customers, or going deeper in the trenches with the developers and with AI. And honestly speaking, I don't know how you feel about this, but I've seen some middle managers before AI where I thought, what are they actually contributing to the organization? Now, looking at the PO and PM roles, there's also a different narrative that we can see. When the term vibe coding came out first, everybody was like, oh yeah, we just take a PO that really knows the business very well and the stakeholders very well, and he will just vibe code the whole application into production. We know that that's not true, at least not now. So maybe we can spin the narrative in a completely different direction and say, okay, we've got very talented developers. They are already using AI to build, like basically deliver what one team previously did. Maybe they can also bridge the gap with AI to the stakeholders, conquer the domain better, and replace POs and PMs entirely. We're not saying that this should be the case, but you see how ambiguous the whole story is here. So just a question, which roles in your organization are most impacted by AI? And now I need to whip out the Slido and get it up and running. Yeah, tell me, which roles? So maybe we can move a little bit on already, and we can look at that later. So Razvan will talk now a little bit about, we talked previously about the developers in your organization, but what does it actually mean for you to lead your organization? How does that change?
So this is a little more practical. We highlight 5 things that we are doing in our company, and you can take it as an example to implement in your company as well. First, it's the domain ownership. We need to empower our teams to be much more experts in their domain, because the execution is becoming cheaper and cheaper. We saw the AI agents can produce code 10x more faster than any developer. But the teams that are winning currently are the teams that are understanding the problem, understanding the bigger picture, and understanding why they are building what they are building. Then the context engineering, it's very important when you are working with an AI agent, because you need to create an environment for him in order to complete his task. And that environment needs to put as available tools to access the data that he needs in order to be able to complete the tools. The data can be your domain knowledge, it can be your logs, it can be your system architecture, it can be your style guides, it can be your task management instance. It can be anything, same as a human. If he has access to it, he can actually build those features quicker. It's the same as a coworker, you need to keep updated. If you are changing something, you need to document that, so next time the agent knows that was changed. Then you need to determine guardrails. This is a very important thing. When you are working with AI agents, you need to define very well what is a good output, so he can test himself that what he implemented was good. For example, in coding, you can have tests, lints, static analysts. And here, I can give you an example, maybe you already know. It was a GitHub repository called Auto Research. It was done by Andrei Karpathy, ex-Tesla AI engineer. And he basically proved that if you have a very good output, you can create an agent and run it overnight, and he can iterate over your solution till the results are getting better and better, and after that he can select the solutions that have the better results. It's a public GitHub repository, and it was booming 1 month ago. Then you need to have human in the loop, especially for the regulated industries such as finance or pharma. And then the most important part that we think is that you need to have a solid architecture. And that means you need to have good style guides, good patterns defined, and a base foundation that the agent can work. For example, 3 months ago, one of our clients came to us and says, okay, how can you help our team to use AI better in a software developer? And because they're already using, but they didn't see any improvement. And we stay with the engineering team, we discuss, and actually we realized that there was so much technical depth that even they could not understand how the code was there. How about an AI? And basically, AI follows what you have. So if you have spaghetti code, you result in spaghetti code. That's why it's very important that if you want to invest in AI agents to work, to help your engineering team to be much more productive, you need to invest first in the baseline. You need to have guidelines that the agent follows. You have patterns. You have good coding standards. But now, also with the help of AI, you can actually use AI to establish those rules, to establish those style guides, and then the team can build on top of that.
Yeah, I can basically give you a good example of that. I have a friend who is also in IT consulting and is big on agentic engineering, and he got into an organization, an insurance company that was using an Angular front end, and they wanted to upgrade several major versions, and the team estimated the whole effort for 7 months. And with the agent framework he built, it basically took them 2 months to ship it in a really clean state. And I think that is pretty substantial. So talking about your role further as an engineering leader, what's happening to you in the everyday? So first of all, your focus will shift from headcount to capability. So you're not just managing people anymore, and shipping projects doesn't just mean, okay, I need to add more people, which never worked in the first place, but this is what a lot of managers think. But what you're trying to establish here is a good agent engineer unit. And if you equip that unit with enough power and the right guardrails and everything that Razvan just mentioned, you can ship way, way faster, and that should be your focus. And your budget will not only be driven by what's the salary times the people that I have, but it's rather, it's also then suddenly talking about token usage. I read recently somebody said that Opus 4.6 tokens are now worth more than Bitcoin currently, which is sad for my portfolio, by the way. From coordination to orchestration basically means your job is currently probably still unblocking teams, setting additional resources, controlling the flow of work through the teams, reporting, and stuff like that, basically focusing on the critical path within the organization. And that will shift way more to just making sure that the groundwork is done and that you can just scale up on that within the organization. And I think that is a beautiful thing, yeah? So if you can make sure that the foundations are solid, you can basically trust the system. And this leads over to control over governance, yeah? The bad news for some of you is micromanagement is dead. For the rest of us, the good news is micromanagement is dead, yeah? So basically, everyone that already trusted in their team can now go get themselves a beer, you're done here. But everyone else who was really always on top of things, trying to get things under control, no, you need to set the guardrails first and foremost, and then you just control that everything is going smooth. And you do that once again, either or through deterministic guardrails, judge LLMs. There's a whole bunch of new ideas coming up, and it's a very interesting time to see how leadership is changing and how the old paradigms of leadership are being disrupted here. So basically, summarized architecture over process, quality judgment. What does quality mean to you? That's way, way more important than knowing what the status is. Getting something through the door, as we did a lot, like for decades in project management. It doesn't matter. We just need to meet the deadline. These times are over. And the last part for me is really, really important because it's about taste and craft. What do you think building your product, what do you believe in will succeed on the market? That will be way, way more important than just making people scurry around delivering something. So from tomorrow on, your new job description will be identify that 10x developer and turn him into a 10x agent orchestrator. And if you can multiply that within your organization, yeah? So design the governance layer, and the most important thing, we've been talking about agentic engineering, we've been talking about your people, we've been talking about your role, but you're not building that organization for yourself. And I think the guys that came before us made that very clear. You have to build agentic AI deeply into your product along the value chain, yeah? And this is where we're heading here with the ARC framework.
So we saw from the last presentation that 60% of the companies are building custom AI agent solutions, but only 5% of them are actually deploying live. And we saw that as well. And that's why we build our own agent framework that help us to actually to deploy more AI agents into production. But why the companies are not deploying those? Because of the confidence. So the stakeholders does not have confidence that the agent is working as expected. Our entire framework is built around a domain expert that knows very well how the agent should perform, how the agent should behave. Our job is to extract that behavior, that knowledge, and put it as a behavior into the agent. And then the domain expert needs to be able to give feedback, constant feedback, till the agent works well. But what means it works well? Well, you can define some key metrics for the agent that can be evaluated. If the agent passes those thresholds, it means that the agent works perfectly or very good. Now, those key metrics help the stakeholders to be confident that the agent responds correctly, behaves correctly, is secure, it cannot break. And that's why we build our own framework.
Yeah, I heard somebody say that you've seen this slide probably a dozen times at the conference already. Is that true? Yeah? Yeah, it went viral last week, I think, when Anthropic published it. I don't have much to say about this, apart from the fact that blue, that is your playground. This is where you want to be going. So your job as an engineering leader will be basically to make sure that you're conquering that blue area. Yeah? And as we said, yeah, designing your agents. Start with the process first, build governance as a feature in there, and keep the humans in the loop. Very, very important. So I hope we made it clear that there is not a clear way through to this, but you need to be positive and you need to think about the opportunities that it brings to you, your organization, not just in right sizing and cutting resources, but actually building out your capabilities inside the organization. Yeah? And I saw here in the Slido that a lot of people said customer service, customer care, that is, these roles are impacted. And of course, there's a lot of automation happening. But I talked to a customer recently, and what I found really nice, what he said is, we're just automating like the basic stuff, like ticketing, helping people with basic technological problems or something like that. We're ironing out the kinks out of our process, but that gives us more time to actually talk to our customers and understand their needs and actually be there for them, to be their partner. And I think that's just beautiful, yeah? Yeah, don't you think so? So, we're done here. We're actually a little bit over time. If you want to connect with us, hit us up on LinkedIn. Otherwise, we're here at the conference to talk. Thank you very much.